Viva 50! Welcome to Race Talk Show. This is your host, your virtual big brother, Ray Collazo. Race Talk Show helps you escape the cage of an uninspiring career to find wealth in your voice through personal satisfaction. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate, of course, those that watch us on the Race Talk Show live every Tuesday and Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And, of course, we always appreciate as well our podcast listeners, where you can subscribe to Ray's podcast on iTunes or anywhere you can subscribe to a podcast. Thank you again so much for joining us. And when I think about the kind of people that I love to have conversations with and bring to the Race Talk Show community, I think about people that have not only gotten off the canvas of life, but done it at any age and are truly living a life where they understand that when it's all said and done, no matter what we go through, at whatever age it is and whatever challenges we face, your boss is looking at every day in the mirror. And it's truly an honor to have someone who really embodies all the values of Race Talk Show with us, and a real favorite of particularly the Latina online community and the community of grown and sexy folks online. No doubt. Lorraine C. Ladish, welcome to Race Talk Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
No, it's been a pleasure, Lorraine. And you are, we have so many mutual friends, and all of my friends online, particularly those I've met through our journey here in Race Talk Show, are such fans of yours, and it's such an honor to have you on the show finally. And you have a new book out. You have so much going on. For those not familiar with Lorraine Ladish, she's a bicultural blogger, online influencer, and most importantly, a mother. She's a writer, editor, blogger. She's written 17 books, including her newest publication, which we definitely want to discuss today, called Reach, From Single Mom on Welfare to Digital Entrepreneur. Lorraine is the former editor-in-chief of Mommyverse, the founder of Viva50.com, and has been featured in publications such as People en Español, Redbook, and Latina Magazine. Lorraine, wow, that was a mouthful. Lorraine Ladish, welcome so much to Race Talk Show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Lorraine, as we were talking about offline, before we start taping the show, that literally, Lorraine, besides you needing your own blab show and your own podcast, you have so much to share. And in this brief conversation, we're certainly not going to do justice to the many lessons that you have, but we'll do the best we can. I wanted to start this conversation, Lorraine, not so much with the beginning, but from what I understand from your bio, sort of the beginning of Reach, because several years ago you had some life changes and you had some crossroads you had to face. And so let's start from the beginning. Where did the journey of this new book, Reach, Lorraine Ladish, begin for you?
Well, it started in 2008, 2009, which was a tough year for a lot of us who were living in the States. And for me, it was actually the end of a lot of things and the beginning of a lot of others. It was the year that I divorced, the year that I lost gigs as a writer. I was writing for the Palm Beach Post, and I was writing for babycenter.com and a lot of other places, but suddenly there were no gigs. There was nothing. So I lost money, I lost savings, I lost work, and I found myself at 45, single with 2 little girls to feed and not knowing what to do. And it was also the beginning of new things when, after having to sell my belongings and my family's heirlooms, that I thought, it was like when you live away from your family, it's something that for me I thought it was like my legacy, the thing that tied me to my family that lives abroad. I'm half Spanish, so it was what I had from my abuelita, and I don't know, it was more than the material value, it was a sentimental value that it held. So I had to sell all those things, including a ring that my grandfather was wearing the day he died, things that my great-grandmother, ya no me acuerdo, la tatarabuela, was wearing in a picture that my grandfather had in his living room. I don't know, just all these things I was hoping to one day pass on to my girls. So I lost a lot, including hope sometimes. And at 45, I thought, well, what am I going to do? All I know how to do is write. There came a point when I had to apply for food stamps, and a friend of mine said, why don't you apply for food stamps? And I said, but that's for poor people. And I realized that really I wasn't able to pay the rent. So I I was eligible. I was, even when I filed for divorce, they told me, like, there's this una casillita there where when I declared my income, they said that I was indigent, so I didn't have to pay the divorce fee. And so I told a friend of mine, I said, I was just declared indigent today. And he's like, I'm so sorry. And I said, no, that means I don't have to pay for the divorce. So I had nothing. There was nothing left to lose except for my health. And that, with that, I went through a few things too. But it was a moment of great loss, but also having two little girls. And I mean, it wasn't the first time I had experienced loss in my life, but it was the first time that I was a mother and I had two children. Oh, wait, I can accept calls. Wait, now I have to click on that. Okay. So the thing is, when you lose so much and yet you have these two little kids, because I was an older mom. So at 45, I was the mother of a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and you have to, tienes que sacarlas adelante. You have to, keep on moving forward. I started a blog, which I had been writing on for years, but I retitled it and called it Success Diaries. And I had it in English and in Spanish. It was called Diario del Éxito in Spanish and Success Diaries in English. But I was at the most unsuccessful point of my entire life. And yet I kept it as a way to, a little bit of, as a writer, just for cathartic purposes, to feel better. And maybe thinking that there might be other women or mainly women, I guess, but why not men, that could be inspired by knowing that even when you're going through your worst times, there could be hope in the little things. And that's why I called it Success Diaries. And it later became a book as well.
Absolutely. No, that such a powerful story. And I know so many people, particularly women, that life is going, the life you perceive is going to continue on for perpetuity. Changes completely. And you have to find the strength to not only move on, but you have to move past the stereotypes or the perceptions that, this single mom is not gonna have the ability to develop a platform like you have, Lorraine, and not only survive but thrive, and we definitely want to get more into that. Mommy Educación, Cindy, Maria Lisa, Vanessa. We have some great people that have joined here. Of course, our homie Felix has joined us here on Blab. So thank you all so much for joining us, Lorraine. So I know that one of the things that I would imagine that draws particularly women to your brand and your story so much is the fact that you did persevere, and you did it in a way that not only sort of helped you pay some bills and sort of get out of that financial and career hole you were in, but inspire others with, like you just said, sort of this success mindset. So what gave you the strength and the light to see that was the direction you need to go to move forward?
I wish I could say that I had some thunderbolt inspiration, but that is not how it happened. And usually that's not how things happen in life. It was more that I was open to whatever. I was applying for jobs as a cashier, as a bartender, as a hostess. It didn't matter to me what I did. But guess what? I had zero experience in it, and I was 45. So I wasn't getting the jobs. They wouldn't give me any jobs. So it happened that, well, first of all, I went into direct sales by chance, and I was selling silver jewelry. So when I go places, I never wear gold anymore because I had to sell all my gold. So un poco like a symbol, I will never wear gold again. Even my engagement ring, when I married again, and it's under $200 what I'm wearing on my finger, because I cannot. It's so I sold jewelry, and that was still not. It was venta directa por catálogo, direct sales, but it was still not enough to pay the rent. So I used to go to dance classes to dance salsa. I'm a dancer as well, among the many other hobbies I have, but one of them is dancing. And so I went to classes just to forget. And, you know, I was in a deep hole. And I tell women when you're down and out and going through your worst moments, you have to take care of yourself. And fortunately, I had that in me when my kids who were little were with their dad. Or a friend would take care of them, or I would bring them to salsa classes, and I would forget about everything. But not only that, Facebook was around by then, and so I would make friends on Facebook with people who went to the dance classes. And one guy there happened to be a businessman, and he said to me that he had seen on my Facebook profile that I was a writer, and he had a coupon site, and that he needed somebody to write blog posts that were SEO optimized. I had no idea what SEO meant at all. I had never written
And you were like, no problem, of course.
I was like, no, I told him I have no idea what that meant. I have no idea what that meant. So he explained it to me, and he was paying me $12 a post, which now seems ridiculous. But back then, to me, that was a lot, because I would write those posts like my life depended on it, which it did. And there was no byline. He taught me a little bit about SEO over the phone. Well, this is what you do. And I thought, oh my God. But when I got the check at the end of the month, I was like, oh my goodness, you know, I'm getting paid to write. I don't care what the writing is, I'm getting paid to write. And the next thing was somebody who had a business building websites. And at this meeting, you know, one of these networking meetings in Naples, Florida, where I used to live. Well, I told him I was a writer, and again he said, "Oh, well, I need a writer," and you know, and then I started writing for websites that needed copy about, but very boring things to me, like tree cutting services and bathroom refurbishings, and it goes as that they're not really my thing. But again, this time we're talking about now they're paying me $1,000 for doing one of these things. And so, so then digital media was just starting, and somebody told me that about.com was hiring, and they needed experts, you know, quote unquote experts in different fields. So I applied in Spanish for consejos de mamá, mom tips, and literature. And I got into the, you know, few runner-ups for the mom tips one. And I had no idea what I was doing. And I needed to learn a little bit of HTML. I needed to learn SEO. I needed to learn how to upload things. And they're like, now you're going to do the back end. And I'm like, what is a back end? I've never heard that. So in a month, in a month of very hard work, I made it. And that was my first paid, more major gig as an online, I don't know, what do you want to say? Online person, online
blogger,
publisher,
writer, online publisher. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I was making money. It was only $600 a month, but back then, to me, that I cried when they told me that, because it was $675 I could count on every month, and that, along with you know, the other things I was doing on websites and all that. But I was always a writer. I was a writer from a very young age, so I was back in writing, and that was very important for me. And then suddenly it was the boom of Latino publications, and then I started submitting writing again to online publications such as Mommyverse, which I later became the editor-in-chief of. So suddenly it was like, oh my goodness, there's all these opportunities, and now I just realized now I'm online. I've been doing this, now I have to relearn my whole writing experience in journalism and writing books and everything, and I have the added advantage that I'm bilingual, so I could do it in 2 languages. And then I took it and ran with it.
Lorraine, you know, there's a couple things. There's so much to this story. And what I love about interviewing people like you, Lorraine, is that, you know, you ask a few questions and it just, it takes the conversation in so many directions. No, but I mean, it's in that you have so much to
keep it short. No, I don't want to.
You know, you're being concise in your comments, but it's just, there's so much to unpack, and there's so many elements of your story that can inspire others. And I jotted down a few notes. One is that I would imagine that, particularly again, women that were in that were faced with that stage of life, this new phase of life with so many uncertainties and things changing your personal life. That what I heard in that story was that at the end of the day, you didn't run away and hide. You were on Facebook, you were writing, you were blogging, you were producing content. Even at your lowest point, you put yourself out there, if you will, right? And you opened yourself up to these relationships and conversations. And at that point, I mean, it can be hard for a lot of people, and it's hard, especially when the bills are piling up, to sort of to have the faith in yourself to say, I need to be more of myself more than ever before. So do you have any thoughts or advice about people that maybe are apprehensive to sort of don't feel either they're ready or have the resume or going through some personal situations to remain sort of present in sort of networking and sort of these, sort of literally and social media wise present?
Well, I would say, first of all, I, of course, had my horrible dark moments. So I lived those very intensely.
Mm-hmm.
When my girls were with their dad, I would shut down and maybe go to bed for a day and cry and pray. Even I'm not even religious. I would pray, mm-hmm. and I would, I'm a spiritual person. And so I think it's feeling the intensity of your loss. You really do have to make room for that, because if you don't make room for that, then you cannot go out and be, I would like be very depressed and paralyzed in one day. But then when my kids came back with me after being with their dad, it would be, okay, this is over. Now it's time to work. And so there has to be room for everything, mm-hmm. for the mm-hmm. grieving and for the, picking yourself up and getting yourself going. So I would also keep a gratitude list of things, of positive things that happened to me that day. And I did it then and I do it now. And now it's a part of my planner, which is very big. But there is a section there for gratitude, and I still do it. So I see it. It's in my face every day. And I don't forget, because it's too easy to forget when you're on an upswing that there were ever bad times. And so gratitude was a very important way for me to keep myself grounded. And then also, looking at my kids, I mean, that was a very, very big motor, and it still is. So when you're going through a really bad time, the good thing of being 40-some back then and now 52 is that you've gone through so much in your life that you know that it is like this. When you're really young and your first really bad thing happens to you, you think you're never going to get out of it. But then when you've been through it a few times, you know that you're resilient and that one day it will end and you will find a way through.
Lorraine, even though I'm not a woman, I can relate to your story in that, one of the things I admire about your brand and your presence online is that too often in our society, women are judged or based, or their identity is viewed through their relationships and who they're with, in terms of partners, and also their age. So the fact that mm-hmm. you've called BS on that and move forward and continue to be yourself is so powerful. And I'll say this, that even one of the things that when I decided I became a podcaster, actually I just had my 3rd year anniversary as being a podcaster this past Sunday on Easter.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And, one of the things that drove me to start and drives me is that, look, I'm 41 and I feel like I'm running out of time. And
well, wait till you get to 52.
Oh, no, shit, right? I know. I was thinking about that. And I must say, part of that is a good thing, right? Because it gives you that sense of urgency that you sort of need to move forward. But at the same time, it's so, I really like the way you laid that out. It's like, now because you've kind of gone through the ups and downs, you have a perspective now to move forward. So I just want to thank you for that. Lorraine, talk to us. The other thing that I really admire about you that I wanted you to share a little bit with us on here on this episode of Race Talk Show. And again, thanks Cindy and Vanessa and our other friends for watching. And I'll open up the chairs in a second so we can, Lorraine, you can meet some of these other great people that were part of the Race Talk Show community. And I'm sure they have some things to share with you. Is that, you're really good at identifying the right rhythm, the right niche, the right brand for yourself. So talk to us about the Viva 50 brand that you founded, and which I think it hits such a good target audience, and it's so timely with the growing number of people of all ages consuming online content. So talk to us about how you developed that brand and how you sort of honed in on that and other niches that have really resonated for your audience.
So I kind of had fallen into the Latina mom niche by serendipity, but I enjoyed it because I thought that, yes, this is who I am. So I represented that very well, but I was running somebody else's business. Mommyverse.com was not mine. It's a website for Latina moms, but I was the editor-in-chief for 2 years. And when I knew that it was time for me to do my own thing again, I thought, well, what can I do in the next 5 to 10 years that I am passionate about? And does the online world need another Latina mom site? And my answer then was no. And I had just turned 50 a few months ago, or almost a year before. I was about to get married to my partner of almost 7 years now. And so I was getting married after 50, and I was thinking, wow, this is when so many people think their life is over. And mine is just starting. And I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Well, there's a lot of people think their life's over 27. I mean, really. I mean, it's just no. Can I tell you, Lorraine, that one of the things that has fueled me so much about being part of these online communities, and I think it started with, I don't know. I mean, I guess I connected with a couple of podcasters, weren't even Latinos. I think I just kind of connected with podcasters online, and then I think I connected with the Latism Network, and I went to Spanish class last year, and sort of slowly and surely you meet some people, but I relied so much on, even when I didn't know any of these people, just kind of listening to podcasts and consuming content from inspirational people, the Gary Vaynerchuks and even those people, because I felt really lonely. Now I have lots of friends, wonderful family, but I felt lonely because the lo juro, Lorraine, at 39, 40 years old, all my friends, they retired all their dreams, and I'm serious. They're like, well, we got our job, we're going to get our pension, our kids are okay. And I just was like, I can't, as much as security for my family is important, I can't, I know there's more for me there. I know there's another gear here. And so that really, connecting and following people like you online have kept me going. And now I've met them, and now it's like, I know I'm, it's a little different, but it's not a small thing. It's not a small thing that you're persevering and letting us know that the best is yet to come. So I cut you off there a little bit. So again, the development of the Vida 50 brand.
Well, no, the thing was that I asked myself, what can I really throw myself into for the next 5 to 10 years that I'm going to be passionate about and speak to people about it with conviction? And the answer was a site for women over 50, because I really am tired of hearing women who, when I interview them for, now I write for NBC, Latino, and ARP and other sites. And when I ask people their age, which I'm required to, some of them don't want to tell me. And this has been going on forever. Okay. But I have never had a problem with my age, because I don't know why, but that's the way I am. And I also am self-employed, so that didn't bother me. But it's like they can't tell me, or they'll tell me in private because they don't want to say in public, because then it will affect the gigs they get or they don't get. Or sometimes even their closest friends don't know their age. And this upset me so much that, not that, I mean, they can put nothing lo que quieran, it's not my.
It's so funny.
But
abuelitas don't want to be called grandma because they don't want to sound old. Yeah,
exactly.
It goes on and on.
It's like, my abuelita's 99, so I feel very young at 52. For her, I'm still niña, And so I want to be the voice of women who can't, because I know that other women might not get the gig, might not get the guy, but I have the guy. I have the gig. I made my own gig.
That's right.
And I was telling people, when I couldn't get a job at 45 because I was 45, well, now I make a living telling people I'm 50-some. And Amen. it really is, I have young girls, and one is about to turn 15, the other one is about to turn 12, and I want them to be okay with aging, because no hay más remedio, that we cannot stop the clock. And if we're not 50 some, it means we're dead. So
That's right.
I'm very happy to be 50 some. There are people, friends who have died, who would be my age. So I'm very grateful to be alive, number one. And number two is that I have realized, as you said, that by talking to people that are not my online peers, because I think the good thing about online is that it brings together people who are a little, because you have to be a little off or wacky to do things like what we do, right?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Because most people want the security of a job and all that. I don't believe in security. I believe in the security of what you make, of what you do. And I believe in like a definition of success. And this all ties into the Viva 50 brand of living life on my own terms. So maybe we don't have success in terms of millions of dollars or, trips to the Bahamas every other month. But my husband and myself, we're both artists. We both work from home. I can take naps during the day. I can take the gigs that I want or don't want. I can make plans. I can create my own opportunities. And to me, that is priceless. So with Viva 50, what I decided was that I was going to establish a website and I was going to take advantage of the fact that I love social media. And that it has saved my life, and I was going to give back to it because it helped me make a living for my kids and way more than I ever thought. And so that's how I established Viva 50. The funny thing was how the name came about is that I wanted it to portray that it was for Latinas, it was bilingual. So I was like Latina Plus or More Than Latina. And oh my goodness, I played with so many names and I bought the URLs but one day I was running and suddenly Viva 50. And I'm like, oh my God, that is 2 words.
It's a great name.
And it's not a number, it's the word, so you can see the 2 languages. And anyway, so that's but I do keep Viva 50 separate from Lorraine online because sometimes people hire Lorraine and are not hiring Viva 50. So I think it's important whenever you establish your own, something with a brand, to kind of keep it separate from your own, even though we also do things together, because if one day I want to do Viva 60 or I want to do something else, then I can sell or not, or just keep it there, whatever I want to do. But Lorraine will always be Lorraine.
Absolutely. And I'm curious with your online audience at Viva 50, what's the biggest reaction, question? What's the subject matter that surprised you or that sticks out to you in terms of the feedback you get?
Well, depends, because it could be from readers, from brands, from peers. Like
how about from readers? Yeah, what's the biggest feedback you get from them?
When I launched Viva 50 is, why are you limiting yourself so much? And my answer to that was because the more niche you are, I had realized by managing bigger publications that the more they wanted to be everything to everybody, the less they were to anybody.
That's right.
So by being very specific and knowing who you want to talk to, you can open it up later. But I already knew that these women between maybe not even 40 some, because I have readers who are younger and they read me because they are inspired by, they won't turn 50 and drop dead or look like crap or, so, but then there are the women who are 48 and 49 who have told me, you know what, I used to hide all your posts of Viva 50 because I didn't want to admit I was going to turn 50. But guess what? They did turn 50 and then they did read it. So anyway, the brands are happy because they can reach that demographic, but it's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to reach that demographic. So I understand that as a businesswoman. And now the readers, a lot of when I see my Google Analytics and how people are finding Viva 50, a lot of it is solitude. How can I reinvent myself? Exercising at 50. I mean, it's like even, and in Spanish sometimes it's, tengo 50 años y no tengo sueños, or meaning there are so many people who I think everybody's like me, that I have all these things I want to do and books to write and kids to raise and more things to do, and I feel I'm running out of time. So I'm very very I don't go out a lot anymore. When I do, I go out until morning, pero I'm very
we'll see next Monday, Lorraine.
Oh goodness!
And Hispanic eyes.
I'm very careful because you can't. You have to put all your effort into your dreams. But yes, a
Yeah.
lot of people over 50 feel that they don't have anything. Like, how do they find their dream again?
You know what I find, Lorraine, I don't know if you agree with this, but one of the things, and I think it particularly cultural with Latinas of previous generations, and even to some degree now, is it possible that they were never taught it was okay for them to dream in the first place? You know,
True.
so when I had an experience with a very good friend of mine when he said he sat down with his mother, who I think was probably at the time in her 60s, and he said, Mommy, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And she cried because she said, no one ever asked me what I wanted. Well, no one ever said it was okay for me to think what I wanted or demand what I wanted or go for what I wanted. So do you think that how is that? How do you help? What has been the kind of content that's helped women that are following your brand get past that, to really take a look at what their dreams really, to acknowledge what their dreams are? Because I believe we have them. We just don't want to acknowledge them because we're taught we're not supposed to, or it sounds stupid, or for whatever reason. So what's been the key to help people make that breakthrough?
I have a different kind of presence in different social media. For example, on Instagram, I started posting my yoga photos. And sometimes those go to Twitter and sometimes they go to Facebook. And it's not to show off that I can get into very contorted positions. It's more to show people that when you think in your head 52, you do not imagine a woman doing certain things with her body because it's not supposed to be possible. So I show them what I am doing and what other women are doing. I just interviewed a woman who is killing it on YouTube. And I thank you for sharing that. So, she's a YouTube sensation at 55, and she is making more than $100,000 a year just with the ad revenue of her YouTube channel.
That's
which,
amazing.
By the way, she would be great for you to interview.
And what does she do on her YouTube channel? Yoga?
She does arts and crafts, and she crafts, and she started crafting 4 years ago, and with her laptop, sin luces, just for her friends. And then suddenly she had a channel and all this. And at 55, she says millennials are her biggest viewers because they feel like she's their abuela. And she's only like 3 years older than I am, but she is an abuela, and I'm not because my kids are too young. But so the whole point is that, she laughs because she says her peers are telling her, when are you going to get a real job? And she's like, You don't understand. I'm making good money. I'm making more than you are.
That's awesome.
With my YouTube channel. So
people don't understand. There's so many opportunities out there. And the beauty of it is the overhead's very low. I tell people, I said,
that is the best part of it.
Yeah. There's so much. I just wanted to encourage people that are watching the show live, Vanessa, Donna, Felix, Cindy, feel free to join in the conversation on cam. We'd love for you the opportunity to ask any questions. If you're not able to join on the camera, you can always ask a question on the side chat. I've also put a link to Lorraine's new book on the chat, which is called Reach: From Single Mom on Welfare to Digital Entrepreneur. We're going to ask you a few questions about that in a second, Lorraine. Before we get into the next set of questions, and again, maybe we'll give one or two courageous friends of ours a chance to jump in the camera here. Remind people that may be listening to this as a replay or on the podcast, Lorraine, where they can find you on social media.
I'm everywhere. I am Lorraine C. Ladish or Viva 50 with letters. Everywhere. I have the same brand everywhere.
Yeah, no. Lorraine C. Ladish has to be a celebrity. I mean, it's such an awesome name.
Lorraine C. Ladish is the only Lorraine C. Ladish in the world, which is good.
Unique. I mean, it goes through the whole thing. It's alliterative. It flows. It's cool.
I Google myself.
That is really cool. The it's a really, really cool name. And again, I encourage any of our friends to join in and ask Lorraine questions directly on the show. Lorraine, let's talk about the new book. Your 17th book, I believe. It's really incredible.
18th.
It's your 18th. Okay, so.
Yeah, but I don't, I don't include it in the other number because all the others were published by traditional publishers, and this is the first one that I do by myself.
Very cool. So again, the name of the book is Reach: Single Mom on Welfare, the Digital Entrepreneur. And we spoke a little bit about the Reach journey early in the show, but what inspired you to write this your 18th book, Lorraine?
Well, And you didn't have to say 18th. My husband makes fun of me because he says, "Oh, you're the published author of 17 books." And I'm like, you know what? I remind myself because sometimes I forget that I've done that. Because women, we tend to like, oh, well, it's okay. But anyway, why did I do it? I did because I had talked about my journey as a single mom or different situations I had gone through. I've talked about it at conferences. I've blogged about it here or there. And I felt that people who had known me for a few years now, they really wanted to know the whole story. Like they would ask me, well, how did you do this? And how did you get through that? And how can I do this? So this past summer, I took advantage of an unexpected week with no internet in the mountains when my husband was teaching a photography class. He's a photographer as well as a writer. And we had no internet. So I said, well, maybe this is a good time to write that book. So I did. And I wrote it in English. I did not know what title I was going to give it, but it was basically, I wanted it to be a very short book because this is the difference between publishing by yourself is that you can make the book as long as it's short as you like. With a traditional publisher, there are a lot of things that have to go back and forth. And I also wanted to give the book for free. If you do it with a traditional publisher, they might not even like that book, whatever, and you cannot give it away unless you buy it and then spend a lot of money. But by doing it myself, I could give it at conferences, and I translated it into Spanish. In Spanish, it's called Emprende, de Mamá Sola y Sin Recursos, a Empresaria Digital, which was released 2 weeks ago or maybe last week. And I can also give it away for free because I know that many women who were in my situation, sometimes $2 is too much, $5 is too much. So on Kindle, they could download it on their computer or at the library or whatever. If they can't really get it, and the paper version, which I cannot make cheaper than around $7, I will even mail it to them myself. But I really wanted it just because it's not only my story, it's a little bit of my story. And I divide it into 5 chapters. And at the end of each of them, I ask the reader questions about herself, if it's a woman, him or herself, so that she can take herself to that place where she could reinvent herself. And when she closes the book, be inspired and think, if she did it, I can do it. And this is how she did it. And this is how I'm going to do it.
That's amazing, Lorraine. And for those women or anyone that's listening to this that maybe is blogging and starting to produce content, but is really trying to find their voice in this process and wants to grow up to be Lorraine Ladish, what would be your biggest advice to them and say, well, Lorraine, I've started, but I don't feel I don't sense this momentum in terms of finding my voice online. What would be your advice to them?
Just be yourself. I think, I used to try in Spain years ago when I was very young, and they would interview me. I would watch people being interviewed, and I said, oh, this is what I have to do, and this is how I have to. Yeah. And I realized, no, it's okay if I move my hands. It's okay if I make faces, because this is who I am.
That's right.
And that is who I have to be. But it took me a while to realize that. But that's also on paper and on blogs or in books. It's just be you. Right. And as long as you're reaching one person who hears, because the way I say something might not resonate with someone, but then somebody else says it a different way, and it does connect with this other person. So I think it's almost our responsibility to just be us, because by being ourselves, we will reach certain people. And again, I don't reach everybody. Not everybody likes what I do. Not everybody, it doesn't resonate with everybody, but that's okay, because that's why there are so many other people out there whose voices need to be heard. And I tell you, like, I have a sister who never thought of herself as a writer. She's 2 years younger than I am. I was the writer in the family. My grandfather was a writer, my dad was a writer, but of all the 4 brothers and sisters, I was the writer. But then 4 years ago, I kind of pushed her into blogging, and now she's a blogging machine. And her blog is called onlifeandhope.com. And now my sister at 50 is going through a divorce, unemployment, and all this, and she's blogging about it. And it is helping her, and it is helping the people. I watch her blog and I share her blog posts, and sometimes she writes for me on Via 50, and I can see that she is reaching certain people because she says things in a different way than I do. And she speaks about her journey in a different way than I do. So she also thought she didn't have a voice and that she had to do things a certain way. But by being herself, she is reaching a whole other, audience that I would never reach.
That's right. And there's a couple things there. One is, you're absolutely right. I mean, we all have a unique voice, unique perspective. I was able to participate in Pennsylvania recently at a seminar. It was for Women's History Month. It was basically a business forum. I'm going to have a few of the women on the show. It was a business forum for women entrepreneurs of color, and it was a fantastic panel. And there was a woman on the panel that runs a local social service organization, a Latina. And she said on the panel, she goes, I used to hate doing these things because I'd go on these panels and there'd be women on here that have MBAs and went to Ivy League schools and, have 7-figure businesses. And she was very transparent. I said, look, I didn't finish my college education. I went through a lot of stuff growing up in the streets as a kid. And I, her and I are friends. And when I got off, when the event was over, I shared with her, I said, you don't realize this now maybe, but ultimately your message and your voice is honestly more relatable than most of these women, just because of, how many people that's been their path. I mean, particularly of our community, very few. So I said, you actually have an advantage in that you speak just as well and you articulate your message just as well as the women have sort of more formal education, but your story is going to be much more relatable to many more people that can relate to growing up in challenging environments and kind of persevering and also being very smart and hardworking and accomplished. So we all have to understand that what we perceive oftentimes as disadvantage, whether it's age or socioeconomic background or what have you, is actually a great advantage because it's our own unique story. So that's so very important. And it's so interesting that, I particularly admire our women bloggers because they're in expressing themselves, they're touching, it really, there's something about the word, even though I love broadcasting and videos, there's something about sharing in that way. It's very intimate, when you blog about your life and some of the things you're going through. So it's really incredible, the power of our own voices. And that's why, Lorraine, I do the show. I do the show because I want to provide an opportunity, especially those that are already online, that are already doing some amazing things, particularly the bloggers and writers out there, to share stories in this manner. But there's so many people that, quite honestly, can barely find me on Blab, but that have done some amazing things I wanted to share with the world. So Lorraine, it's so a pleasure to have you with us. As we wrap up this episode of the show, and again, if anyone watching wants to join us, ask Lorraine a question in the latter stages of the show. We'd love to have you join. I love Lorraine. Vanessa's one of your neighbors in that part of Florida, and there's a few other people. It'd be great if they came on cam just for a moment to say hello, Lorraine. I did want to ask you, Lorraine, you're hustling. You're an entrepreneur online, and you're doing some amazing things. For people that maybe, again, are looking to build their platform with some of the tools you're using, give us a tip. You're a brand ambassador. You're doing Twitter chats. I mean, you're working the business angles here. So any thoughts, advice for people like us, content creators that are looking to monetize and would love to hear some best practices from you, Lorraine?
Well, I have realized, first of all, that social media never sleeps. I find ways of cracking codes, and if I don't know how to do it, I'll figure it out. I hire people to help me with social media, but there was a moment when I was doing it all by myself, and if I had to, I would again. But one of them is figuring out somehow, like, don't feel that you are less than because you have fewer followers or whatever. That we all start at some point. I will never forget the day that I sent my first tweet and didn't know what the heck I was doing. And a few days ago, Facebook reminded me that in 2010, I posted on Facebook, I don't know about this tweeting business. And now I make a lot of money doing Twitter parties, and, and Twitter is almost not my favorite, but it's up there with. So it's, I use a lot of, I find the tools that are going to help me not only like grow a targeted following, but also make the best of the social media that I already have out there. So I use tools such as Buffer app for scheduling and for managing and finding interesting information to curate for Twitter and mainly for Twitter. For me, Buffer, I mean, there are a lot of tools, but these are the ones that I've been using for a while and that I really enjoy. I love Tweepy with a W to grow my Twitter following and to manage the lists and sometimes even to answer people on Twitter. I use oh my goodness, I forgot the name. In Iconosquare for Instagram. And I also spend a lot of time on social media that I enjoy. So for example, I'm not on social media all day, even though I just said it doesn't sleep, but I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do, this is a little embarrassing, but the first thing I do is I roll out of bed. Actually, I don't even roll out of bed. In bed, I'm on my phone. But I make a living off of it. So I check my Twitter. I check your stats. That's very important as well on Google Analytics. To check your. Now I don't understand if Buffer is good to check your stats, which it is. But I look at, like, I do my interactions on social media in the morning and at night for sure. Like tonight, I have to put up my Instagram post, which I haven't done yet. And I don't automate that because I have discovered that I love Instagram for microblogging. Yeah. I used to use it just for photos, and now I microblog, so I have a different community there. On Twitter, I will retweet before I go to bed, and I'll get on there and all that. And then on Facebook, now I have people for Viva 50 who, they post things on my Facebook page, but I am the one interacting because I never want to lose that. I want people to know that when they send me a tweet or they write to me on Facebook or anywhere else, it is always me who is answering. So stay engaged, but grow. Don't be afraid to grow. I have heard a lot that your numbers don't matter, that it's engagement. And I say that's not true, because I have been asked to host, for example, a Twitter party. And I said, I want to use this and this and this person. And they said, oh, well, this person doesn't have enough followers. Can you get me somebody else? And I know that person would have done a really good job. So yes.
What's the followers usually the brand want as a threshold number?
It depends. It depends because if, for example, say you host a Twitter party, and now Twitter parties, they say they're phasing out, but it depends on, brands still want them. But so if you give a brand 3 possibilities, so we're going to reach X, Y number of impressions, million impressions, and we're going to use this number of people, and we're going to pay them X, Y, Z. They're going to be, of course, they're not going to be as exigentes, they're not going to be so demanding as if you want to reach more people. They're always going to want people, the more the better. Mm-hmm. And that is a reality, and there are ways, by the way, to find out if you have fake Twitter followers. So I also run all the people who I want to use for Twitter parties to see if they bought their followers or if they're real. So you can't fake it, right. But it is important to grow your following, and it is important, to and also don't get discouraged, because I see a lot of people saying, oh, but I'll never reach that. So to give you a short example, a year ago I had less than 1,000 followers on Instagram, and somebody told me that it was really important for me to grow my Instagram following, or I wasn't going to get the gigs for whatever. So I took an Instagram course because I didn't have the time that I did have to figure Twitter out. And I started making my photos more beautiful and paying more attention to my feed and microblogging and using Iconosquare, as I said, and all this. And then now 1 year later, I am close to 12,000. And of course, I could probably do it faster even if I hired someone to help me. But right now, it doesn't really matter. But so what I mean is that it's not impossible. But 1 year ago, to me, it seemed like, what? I am never going to have even 5,000. Well, I was able to. And it's not about, I just need more and more people. You need, of course, people who are going to be engaged and all that. But it's about, like, one thing I said recently at at oh my goodness, at an event in LA, was that one thing that I do compulsively and obsessive. We have to understand that I'm an addictive and obsessive person, and I just learned to channel that into a positive way. So I read compulsively, I learn compulsively, and I am always trying to figure things out. So that is how I get the results, because I'm always, doing something to move forward. And you don't have to be a nut like I am, but you can learn how to manage yourself on social media. And then the last thing I'm going to say is that sometimes I'm really surprised that a company will pay me money to tell them how I run my social media, or how I do this or how I do that, and then they don't do it.
Yeah.
That drives me crazy. Yeah. Some people say, I want to pick your brain, I want to know your secrets. And I tell them, but I tell them like with everything. Like I open my computer and show them what I do. And then they're like, but I don't have the time. I don't have the time either.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Tim Ferriss talks a lot about that. He writes his books about how to basically his, trade secrets. And, he's been often interviewed, like, how do you reveal all this information? He goes, 98% of the
nobody uses
98% of the people ain't gonna follow the plan anyway. So so it's absolutely true. There's no reason. It's not.
I've given my email. I've given my email at a conference, which was about freelancing. And I said, listen, about the importance of writing and having a good editor. And I said, send me your stuff. I'll edit it just once. I'll give you my opinion. Out of 50 people, one person did it. Wow. In the room.
Incredible.
It was a small Lorraine, one, but it's people don't.
Yeah. Another tip as it relates to your brand ambassadorships, connecting with brands, developing those kind of relationships. Any thoughts you have for us, Lorraine?
Well, for people who are just fresh out of, just starting a blog, I would say the best way to start is by joining influencer networks. But don't limit yourself to Latino networks. When I started View of 50, even though I had already been an editor and I knew PRs, so people knew me from working with them, so I had that advantage, which new bloggers usually do not. But I also joined some networks because I really needed View of 50 to take off. So I was like directly working with PRs, but at the same time working with networks. I was just doing everything I could. But also, if you start with networks that are not Latino, you could get more gigs than maybe if you just, start with these others. Now, go to conferences, for example, as you said, Hispanicize is up and we'll meet there next week. And if you go, you don't have to go to every single conference, but if you go to a few conferences starting with the Latino community, and then you start making friends with PRs, because PRs, what happens is that they move around a lot. So once you have a relationship with a PR person who knows how you work, when they go to this other company, they're going to call you because they've already worked with you. And if they worked with you through a network, an influencer network, they still know who you are. And they might be able to offer you more money or, also be nice to your peers. I have to say that one of the most important things is, because one day, like Lorraine, one day is an editor for NBC and I'm covering an event. Next day I'm going as Viva 50, and the day after tomorrow they're hiring me to run a network. That you have to be very aware that it's a very small world. What goes around comes around, and to be very, very nice to your peers. And because you never really know who's sitting next to you. And this has happened to me. Like once I was at this conference and some person next to me said, oh, her battery, she ran out of a battery. And I happened to remember that I had a Mophie case that I had never used, and I had it at home. I didn't have an iPhone anymore of that size. So I said, listen, give me your address and I'll mail it to you. Well, she was a PR and we ended up working together.
That's awesome.
So by the same token, I see a lot of people of up and coming bloggers that are complaining publicly, like on Facebook. They use Facebook to rant about, oh, PRs are this and my colleagues are that, and never do that, because if you are being watched, and I tell people, like, I have gotten gigs that I had no idea were headed my way. Right now, I'm at a point where sometimes I sit at the computer and an email comes in that I sit and look at for 5 minutes before I tell my husband. because I can't believe it.
Hmm.
And because it doesn't come from someone I know. It comes from someone who has been watching me online. And that is very important. So I would never dream of dissing a colleague or anybody for that matter, because that is, it is something that is taken for granted in any other profession, where you do not diss your boss to his face, or in the meeting room, or you do it at home if you have to. But that's where you keep your dirty laundry there. But so be very, open to learning, and sometimes just ask, because I've learned, I have a lot of mentors. I have a lot of wonderful women that have helped me and continue to help me. And sometimes all it takes is asking. And sometimes we're afraid. And, usually I'm very pressed for time, but if somebody asks me a question, they could be somebody I have never met. I will answer the question if I have the answer, or I will point them in the right direction. And I'm always available, but people don't reach out that often. So.
Yeah, no, and well, Lorraine, don't worry about it. I don't go away easily, so Ray's Talk Show will definitely be keeping in touch with you. And Lorraine, it's funny because your reputation precedes you so much, because I mean, people online just love you, and they when we put social media.
Not everybody loves me, but
well, certainly you have quorum on the fan club. There were just so many warm wishes and people that were happy you were going to be on the show, and I must say, and my booking producers is watching, Donna McIntyre, and it's really funny because you were like one of the easiest people to book on the schedule on the show. It's like, okay, no problem.
I never say no. I never say no to it.
Well, and it's funny because I know people are busy, but needless to say, people that you would think definitely need the publicity and the attention more. I've been at times can be a little more difficult to get on the shows. It's kind of so. Look, Donna says yes, CCC. So, but that's why who you are, Lorraine, and you have an incredible spirit. And like I said, I'll be honest with you. I must say that without knowing how many people follow your Twitter, particularly amongst the Latino online social media influencer community, you are definitely amongst the most respected, and it's been such an honor to have you on the show, and you are just as cool as everybody said you were going to be. So we thank you so much for joining the show. Well, again, next week. So as we wrap this up, definitely wanted to, before Lorraine gives her final thoughts, I want to again thank the people that checked out Ray's Talk Show live, and anyone catching this as a video on BigBrotherRay.com or as the podcast. I also want to let people know that this Thursday, March 31st, we're going to give people a Hispanicized sneak preview, because we're actually going to have the people who are going to be members of the podcast panel, including Felix Montalado, Arturo Nava, Marcy Quintero. What's Marcy's last name? Quintero, and Brandy Butler,
she's
who are going to be joining us.
That woman.
Brandy's really cool. I just got to know her. She's good people. So they're going to be on the show Thursday night. So check it out, Lorraine. Feel free to join us. And we're going to give people we're going to talk about podcasting and definitely welcome to give people tips about getting their podcast on the ground, including Lorraine. You definitely need one. And the Viva 50 brand for sure. And also give people a preview of what we expect from Hispanicized. Most of us, 3 of the 5 people have been Hispanicized before. And a few like Brandy are new. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully Tatiana will crash the party in South Florida next week. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Lorraine, actually help us with that as we wrap this up. For anyone that's going to be listening or watching to this that's going to Hispanicize, just any other thoughts about tips for any conference, but if they're going to Hispanicize
in particular, brace yourself. And I mean, it's like a long conference. It's this year I'm just going 2 days, but I have done the 5-6-day thing before. It's my 4th or 5th year, I forget. And but it's very great in the sense that you really can go dress whatever way you want, be comfortable. If you're a woman, keep your heels in the room and wear flats or wedges. It's very relaxed. It is Miami. It's very relaxed. you know, and if you just walk up to people and tell them who you are, and most people are really nice, and there are so many things going on. This is the hardest part, is that to choose what you want to do or go to is going to be difficult. Yeah. So I have noticed that for me, I tend to make a schedule. Usually this year I'm going without a schedule, except for a couple of things that I have.
Good for you.
Well, I have a couple of things that, you know, I'm already getting emails like, do you want to do this? Do you want to interview this person? So, but I try to stay away from it, because once you're there, it's nuts. So you will be taken, you know, here and there. Yeah. And then somebody will grab you and speak, and then you'll talk for 2 hours. But a lot of what happens in conferences, I find, that is most valuable happens, and not to take away from the panels at all, but especially in the Latino community, happens in los pasillos, you know, so be very open to, you know, I have found that the best things that have happened to me business-wise were in the hallways, and even in the bathroom, in the women's bathroom.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Yeah, no, we're definitely going to be live streaming, blabbing, and definitely try to document as best we can. But again, like you said, Lorraine, you want to focus on these personal relationships. It's going to be great to see Felix, and obviously meet you, but Felix, who I met at the conference last year, and we've become great friends. And it's kind of like our yearly reunion with me and Felix and others. Arturo and many others are going to be part of it. Lorraine, as we wrap up this edition of Race Talk, so it's been such a wonderful pleasure to speak to you and learn about more about your inspirational story and your vision. Just any final words you have for the audience and anyone that's listening to the show today?
Just that if you set your own definition of success, that doesn't have to be anybody else's. Whatever you think it is, go for it and go from there. You know, don't buy into what other people tell you that success has to look like. That's all.
That is wonderful, Lorraine. Again, remind people that they can find you on social media.
Lorraine C. Ladish everywhere. I do not have different handles, or Viva50 with letters.
Fantastic. And for those watching, again, the Race Talk Show on video, we have a link to her newest book, her latest book, Reach, From Single Mom on Welfare to Digital Entrepreneur. I'm definitely going to download it after we get off the phone, off the show here on Kindle. And I definitely, you know, I think it's a book that is very inspiring and I think very timely. There's definitely an audience for your message, Lorraine. There's no question about it. And we want to thank Lorraine C. Ladish, author, Latina Superwoman. Thank you so much. The founder of Viva50 brand. Definitely support all of her platforms and projects. And again, we want to always thank our Race Talk Show audience on video and podcast. And you can check out our live blab every Tuesday and Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Just go to bigbrotherray.com or check out our blab.im. And you can always subscribe to the podcast version of the show. Lorraine, this is going to be about the 215th episode of the podcast. So we're chugging along here. A lot of great conversations.
That's persistence. See, that's why you do this.
Absolutely. We're not messing around here, Lorraine. We got a lot to do and look forward to collaborating with you in the future. Thank you again so much for joining us, familia, and have a wonderful evening.